Hello everyone and welcome to the 14th installment of the Turf Battles New Client Development Diary. Today, before we get started, I did just want to briefly mention that we've been making a bunch of back-end changes. They are finished. They revolve around connecting with the database, saving information to the database, kind of transferring data between the two, as well as how data is transferred between servers, such as from channel 1 to channel 2, and the login servers as well. Um, those changes were just made kind of to optimize how data is transferred and kind of connects to what we discussed in the last video regarding the mailbox system and how it's taking a lot of memory just to process all that. Um, but those changes are done. They shouldn't be noticeable to players as these are just optimizations made typically around startup when we're loading a lot of data and transferring a lot of data between the servers, but they should lead to faster startup times. I just figured I'd mention that before we jump into it. Some of you may have already noticed that the primary focus of today's video was to demonstrate the level 12 system rework, as noted by my character name here, level 12 demo. So there's a couple different things that have changed revolving around that, and I'll just kind of get started with that right off the bat by taking you all into GC. So something that has changed with GC is actually, I believe this actually might be the same on the current servers, but I'll mention it. On channel 1, GC is now for level 201 to 275. The reason why it caps at 275 on level 1 is because that is the bracket for level 12 equipment, and we want to provide players with the opportunity to farm level 12 items if they so choose without being bullied out by higher level players that are in clonium equipment. Or other equipment that might outgear level 12 items. Um, on channel 2, that is still the Reaper channel. You can't actually take it, but it's available from level 201 to the max level, which depending on your server might be 300 or 350. And then on channel 3 again, it's for levels 201 to the max level. And again, that depends on your server. Okay. And you might have noticed that that crystal actually showed 201 plus. It's supposed to show 201 to 275 on this channel because we are on channel 1. But I believe it's showing 201 just because of the fact that we're on a test server. Okay. So first thing I got to do is go take the turf. And you might have noticed that now I'm running fast and that I'm one-hitting things. Again, that's just because of a GM command. So I've taken ownership. If I start killing monsters, you'll notice that I've already gained some items. Some things that have changed here are specifically that Ghost Maze and Ghost Uwas now give the same kinds of drops. Previously, they gave different drops depending on materials on the Triumphus server, as well on both servers they drop differences in red honors and blue tiers, depending on what monster you killed, but now they just both have a chance to drop both. Haven't got any red honors yet, but I guess I'll keep going until I get some. You might already notice that in my inventory there was a new item. This is dilithium ore, and basically that is the new material for level 12 items. Now the key concept here behind the level 12 rework is that we want to kind of take the success that we've had with clonium equipment and apply it to the level 12 equipment. A lot of players liked the simplification that we made for clonium equipment in terms of statting, upgrading, crafting, and just the general how you find those items, and we want to move that over into this new level 12 system. So I found the items. I'm going to go ahead and teleport out here just so I don't keep getting attacked during the video. But basically, I got some red honors and some blue tiers. You'll be able to get the same kinds of rewards no matter if you're on channel 1 or channel 3. You'll be able to get blue tiers, red honors, and dilithium ore. The reason why you can still get blue tiers and red honors at these levels is because Vice Equipment uses those gems. So we had to kind of allow them to be farmed still at those levels. You may have also noticed we did upgrade or increase the drop rate in GC while we were there. Um, it's I'm not sure if it compares still to NATO, just because NATO does constantly keep respawning and you don't really need to move. Um, but the rate has been increased for BTs and Red Honors. Okay, so the next thing that we wanted to kind of go over. Oh, actually, I did want to mention that we changed the bracket 5 island as well. I'm not going to go ahead and go there just because it's time consuming, but we changed it so that it does also drop dilithium metal, or sorry, dilithium ore. Um, okay, so the next thing I just did want to show off was the crafting system. We've already made the change where you can craft level 12 materials. So to craft a level 12 item, you need to first refine dilithium ore into something called dilithium metal. You need level 80 refining to do that. And similarly, if you want to craft level 12 items, you need an appropriate blacksmithing level, which for most items is 90. And then for the armor, I believe it's 95. Yep. And then for the weapons, it is also 90. But looking at my stats here, it looks like I don't have the required stats to upgrade yet. So I'm going to pause the video just so that I can have those stats. Okay, so I've gone ahead and added those stats to my account. So now I have enough refining as well as enough blacksmithing to craft these items. And I've actually added an abundance of dilithium ore and the refined dilithium metal already to my account to demonstrate all the functionality. But just to show off how works, if we want to craft 1 dilithium metal, that's going to cost us 3 dilithium ore. And so we just type in the 1 and we click craft. This is what dilithium metal looks like. It's just a green bar. The idea is that you have the ore that's crafted or refined into a smithed bar. Okay, so we're a blade warrior, so we'll go ahead and craft a level 12 set. I'm just going to go ahead and cycle through all of them. Boots. And we need 2 vambraces, 1 sword, and 1 shield. And just to kind of demonstrate that they all are there, I'll click each one. There's a blaze, there's Aplite, there's Glacies. So there's our full set, just like we crafted. And it did cost us the dilithium metal. We had 2 stacks of bars before, now we just have the 1, as well as 811 left. Something you might have noticed is that we decided to keep the same quantity of requirements for level 12s that we kept with the clonium equipment. The reason for that is people enjoyed what it was at, and why mess with a good thing, right? But basically, it's about 25 dilithium metal for 1 piece, and that varies depending on if you're making armor, as well as I think swords, yep, or weapons, sorry. And then as well with the material, the cost or the quantity is still the same, which is 3, same as the clonium. Okay, another key thing that we wanted to kind of port over from the clonium change was the fact that items always have a perfect stat arrangement. So you always get the same 4 stats. It doesn't vary between, like 6 or 7 stats, how it was originally set up on the Triumphos server. We've changed it so now when you do stat an item, I don't have enough gems, so I'll pause the video. Sorry about that. So yeah, we've changed it so that when you do add an item and you stat it, it's going to be perfect stats. So if I just demonstrate here, there's 1 stat, stat removed. There we go. We got magic defense, critical hit rate, vitality, and defense. And no matter how many chest plates you try, those are going to be the 4 exact same stats you get on every single chest plate, at least for Merseal. Just like with Clonium, it's a little different for red mages and blue mages. they get red and blue stats instead of the critical rate, I believe. And then similarly with these other ones, I believe they all have the same kind of options, which is strength, magic defense, dexterity, and defense. And that's just the same for vambraces, helmets, boots, and yeah, I think shields are a little bit different because they have the block rate, but we can demonstrate that too. Yeah, there's the block rate. So they come with magic defense, block rate, attack success rate, and strength, and every shield and protector will have those same stats. And then the weapons, of course, are also a little different depending on your class. But for physicals, you'll always get that physical attack success rate, physical skill attack, and critical hit rate. For mages, that'll of course vary. It'll be magic attack, magic skill attack, min attack, and max attack. And those are just the perfect stats. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, well, what happens if we already had level 12 equipment that had messed up stats? Well, we spent a lot of time writing a script that converts existing equipment existing level 12 equipment into the right stats. So, for example, before, if you had, I'm just trying to think of a bad stat. So, for example, on this vambrace before, if you had 1 strength, 1 dexterity, 10 vitality, 1 defense. Or sorry, that's a lot of stats. If you had 3 stats or 4 stats and one of them was vitality and you didn't have magic defense, and then you switched it, your magic defense will now be at what your vitality level was at. So for example, if you had 10 vitality before now you're going to have 10 magic defense. And that should have happened with all characters and all items in the game, including items that are in the mailbox. We spent a lot of time on ensuring that that process did work properly because we know that nobody wants to have their stats randomly disappear. So that was a pretty big change that we made. And that, again, also ties into those backend changes that we made. Okay. Some of you might be wondering, what about the materials that we had? A lot of people spent time farming level 12 materials when it was a more complicated process. Well, we also spent a lot of time on that and a new system that we use to replace items. So basically, we created a system where if we, for whatever reason, want to remove an item from the game and give you a different item instead, it's going to do that at the start of every server instance, so every time the server restarts. And we kind of use that with the level 12 materials. So basically, when people on the Triumpha server log on for the first time after the server update, whenever that happens, hopefully less than a month now, they will have everything replaced, and instead of those old level 12 materials, they're going to have either dilithium ore or dilithium metal. Now, what you get depends on if the item that's being replaced was a raw material or a refined material. If it was a raw material, you're going to get dilithium ore because that's the equivalent of the new raw material. If it was a refined material, you're going to get dilithium metal, again, because that's the equivalent of the refined material. And I actually already opened this, but the other system that we wanted to show off was the mailbox. We changed the design a bit. It kind of looked a little ugly before. We think this new design is a little bit better. Not only that, but we did change how items are listed here. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video just so I can populate this a bit so I can better demonstrate. Okay, so I went ahead and got some dilithium ore mailed to myself. So now you can already see that the key difference here is now it says 29 days on the far right of each item. This number changes depending on the item and how long it's been in the mailbox. So just like in the last video, we talked about how we're thinking about adding expiration dates or expiration times for items in the mailbox. This is the change right here. So just to quickly summarize it, once you have an item mailed to you, you have 30 days to accept it. If those 30 days expire, then that item is automatically removed from the mailbox and placed in an expired mailbox list in our database. That is able to be restored for up to 1 year. So in other words, we store the data in that expired table for 1 year, and in that 1 year, if you don't ask to recollect it, it gets automatically deleted. So just like if you were, for example, trying to recover a lost item, you would open a support ticket saying, hey, I had so and so or X item in there. Is there any chance I can get it back? And we will look into it. We'll look see if the item is there, and if so, we'll return it. So I say 1 year, that's 365 days. Is exactly how long you have until that item is removed and we aren't able to restore it. Okay, but if I just go ahead and accept that, it's not working. So the reason it wasn't working was actually because I didn't have enough room in my inventory. So I made a note of to add a message to pop up when that happens. But basically I accepted it, and there's my 1 dilithium ore. If I try and accept again, it's not working. The reason it's not working is because we don't allow items to stack on top of other items when you accept a mail item, just because we want people to be certain that they did receive that item. If they were to accept that item and it stacks onto another item, they might not be so sure, and what might happen is you might open a support ticket, we'd look into it, and we tell you, oh, it actually stacked onto the item. But it would be a lot of time wasted in that process, so we decided to make it so they don't stack when you try to accept them. But afterwards, you can go ahead and try and stack it like I just did, which turned it into a stack of 3. That's everything that we kind of wanted to demonstrate in this video. We didn't get a chance to do the boost system like we mentioned in the last video just because of how long it took to make the conversion scripts. They took a lot longer than we expected, but we'll try and aim for having that in the next video. Before we kind of close off, there's 2 topics that I did want to talk about, just really quick and briefly. A lot of people have been kind of voicing that they want Catastrophic Cavern turned into an instance. We're not really sure if that's the best idea, just because if that does happen, we have to relook at the rates for dropped items as well as the experience rates for the cavern itself. Because once we create it into an instance, you can theoretically have an infinite amount of monsters going on at a time, and that's just not what Catastrophic Cavern was intended for. If that's what players want, I'm all down for making that change. But an alternative to that, which I think would be a fair change for most players, is to instead introduce the cavern onto multiple servers. So that is, have it go happening on, for example, channel 1 and channel 2. Now the key difference is that on channel maybe 2, you can't PvP. And the reason for that is because the main complaint so far has been that they want it to be an instance so that they don't have to worry about players PKing them. So on channel 2, for example, it would be no PvP, and channel 1 it would be PvP. So if you want to farm without being able to PK other players, but also without being able to be PK'd, you would go on channel 2. If not, if you want to be able to kind of defend your territory, you would go on to channel 1. And that's kind of how I think Delfroth operates right now. So that's an option. I think it's a better option than turning it into an instance. Players are able to voice their feedback on that through support tickets or Discord, but that's kind of where we're at with that. The next topic is it's an issue that's been happening with turf battles ever since it's been out back in I think 2003. But it's macro potions. It's something that we've been kind of fighting since we released the game, but it's a problem that kind of has been progressing more and more and more. There's been lots of people that voiced concerns about other players or reports, and a lot of the times players voice those concerns and we look into it and it turns out the player wasn't actually macroing. When it comes to macroing, our anti-hack system is fairly straightforward. We can detect if someone's using a keyboard macro, if they're using a mouse macro, if they're using a program to macro. It really doesn't matter. If you are caught using any of that, you're issued a ban. The duration of that ban is dependent on your account's history and the circumstances around the accusation. So, for example, if you are just using a simple macro, which is something that just clicks buttons for you, that is going to give you a temporary ban of 3 days, then 6 days, then 15 days, and then a permanent ban. If you are caught using a macro that automatically pause for you, so this is no longer considered a macro. This is a hack. This is a bot. And this receives an instant permanent ban. We've been receiving a lot of tickets regarding banned accounts, people saying that they aren't macroing or trying to get their accounts unbanned. Once your account is permanently banned, there's no way you're being unbanned, especially when it comes to hacking. When it's issued a temporary ban, it's because we know for a fact, without a doubt, 100% that your account was using a macro. Whether or not that was you or someone you share your account with, that's a different story, but nonetheless, you're responsible for who uses your account and what they do while they're on it. And so if you are banned for that, uh, the ban will stay. Something though that I did want to mention is that a lot of players have kind of voiced increasing the detection for that, because right now we do depend on players reporting it before we are able to actually look in the logs. Just because we don't look at the logs every single day, we typically only look at the logs when it's necessary and after every server restart. And we deem it necessary when a player reports a player or when there's an issue that requires us to look into the log. But basically, some suggestions that players have been making have been to kind of introduce a kind of cap on when potions can be used. So what that means is if you spam your potions really, really, really fast, that's fine. But if it becomes inhumanly possible, then some players have suggested then just not to count those potions anymore. That's an interesting idea. I kind of like it just because of the fact then we don't have to ban players for using macros. We would still ban players for using bots, but then at that point, I'm not sure if we would even care if someone uses a macro, because it wouldn't be an unfair advantage compared to other players, because it would be a humanly acceptable value. It's kind of a touchy subject, so I kind of want players to provide their feedback on it before we even think about adding it. Um, but yeah, I'd like to hear players' feedback on that and what they think. Okay, so that's it for today. I look forward to hearing everyone's feedback. I hope you all enjoy the video. Maybe real quick before the video ends, I'll go ahead and show off the equipment that we actually made. So it's not replacing here just because there's a cooldown before you can replace another item. And actually that was because there's already something equipped for the Vambrace. There we go. There's our full Merseil set. Just to leave you guys off with that kind of image. Okay, have a good weekend and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.